Okay, picture this. You live at the absolute center of power. I'm talking royal palaces, Dior dresses, just unimaginable privilege. And then, overnight, it's all gone. Vanished. Replaced by 20 years of darkness inside a secret desert prison. And this isn't some movie script. This is the real story of the Oufkir family, and their just unbelievable fall from the very top of Moroccan society into, well, into nothing.
After Tamwatart, God was dead for us. These are the words of Malika Oufkir, the eldest daughter. In that single sentence, it just tells you everything you need to know about the hell they went through. It's a quote that cuts right to the bone, and it really sets the stage for a story of just profound suffering and maybe even more profound resilience.
So let's just take a second to wrap our heads around the sheer whiplash of their lives. On one side, you have this world of complete luxury. We're talking being raised inside the royal court. And on the other side, the reality that replaced it. Total isolation, sickness, rats, scorpions, a complete and total erasure from the world. The change was so brutal, so absolute, it's almost impossible to really comprehend. So you have to ask, how did this even happen?
To really get this story, we're going to start not at the beginning, but right in the middle, at its absolute darkest moment, in the place that was designed to break them, the prison hell of Tamdegrit.
For years, the Oufkirs basically became ghosts. They were what's known as the disappeared. They get shuttled between these secret prisons, but the absolute worst was Tamdegrit. And get this, it wasn't just a prison. It was a ruined palace, supposedly haunted, because, and you can't make this up, it was built on top of an old cemetery. So you've got scorpions just everywhere, literally living in the cells with the family. And just days after they get there, a wall collapses and kills 2 of their guards. I mean, this place wasn't just built to hold them. It was designed to break their minds.
Right, so that's the crucial question, isn't it? How does a family that close to the king just get erased from existence? To figure that out, we've got to go back and meet the patriarch, the man whose actions ended up sealing his entire family's fate.
General Mohamed Oufkir. You need to understand, in the Morocco of the 1960s and early 70s, this name meant everything. He was one of the most powerful men in the entire country, the king's right-hand man, his enforcer, the guy in charge of the whole security apparatus. Some people respected him, sure, but he was feared by pretty much everyone.
And his rise to power was lightning fast. He'd been a decorated officer in the French colonial army, and then, after Moroccan independence, he became this absolutely essential figure. He was known for being loyal, ruthless, and incredibly efficient. Then in 1971, he personally helped save King Hassan II during a really bloody coup attempt. His reward? He was made Minister of Defense. As far as anyone was concerned, this guy was totally untouchable.
And all that power, well, it translated into a life of just unbelievable luxury for his family. His oldest daughter, Malika, was practically adopted by the old king, Mohammed V, when she was a little girl. She literally grew up inside the royal palace with the future King Hassan II. The family vacationed in Stade, they wore the best clothes, they never saw a bill. They weren't just close to the monarchy. For all intents and purposes, they were a part of it.
But that entire world, a world built on decades of loyalty and fear, was about to come crashing down because of one single, unbelievable act. The general's final, fateful gamble.
August 16th, 1972. Something happens that sounds like it's straight out of a Hollywood movie. Fighter jets from the Moroccan Air Force actually attack the king's personal plane as he's flying home. But in this moment of genius, the king himself grabs the radio, pretends to be a mechanic, and tells the pilots the tyrant is dead. He convinces them to break off the attack. The king's plane manages to land full of bullet holes, but safe. The coup was over. It had failed. And that very night, General Oufkir, the man who commanded those jets, got a summons to the palace.
He never came home. The official story that came out was that the general, realizing his plot had failed, had committed suicide. Now, whether that's the real story or not, who knows? But the consequences were immediate and catastrophic. His wife Fatima and their 6 children, who had no idea what their father had been planning, were rounded up and arrested. Just like that, their entire world was over.
And with that one act, the Oufkir family just vanished. For the next 2 decades, they were completely swallowed by a darkness so total, it's like they had never existed in the first place.
20 years. I mean, just let that sink in for a minute. 20 years locked away without ever being charged with a crime, without a trial, without any contact with the outside world at all.
And for 10 of those years, some of them were held in total solitary confinement,
We're talking a single cell, never seeing the sun, never speaking to another human being except the guards who'd bring them their tiny bit of food.
And remember, this punishment was for 6 children. 6. The youngest, Sukaina, was only 3 years old when this whole nightmare started. She was being punished for a crime she couldn't even begin to understand.
So how on earth do you survive something like that? Well, you fight back with the one thing they can't lock up, your mind. Malika, the eldest, invents this massive, epic story with over 200 characters that she would tell her siblings every single night. They wrote secret diaries on whatever they could find, scraps of spice wrappers, anything. The eldest son, Ralph, somehow figured out how to tap into the prison's electrical grid just to power a tiny hidden radio. It was their only link to the world. They even used humor, giving their guards sarcastic nicknames to keep their sanity. They kept their humanity alive by dreaming of a future they had absolutely no reason to believe would ever come.
But this story isn't just about survival. It's also about escape. Because after 15 years, they decided they would rather die trying to be free than live one more day in that darkness.
So, in 1987, 4 of the older children did something incredible. For months, they used their bare hands and a sharpened spoon to dig a tunnel out of their prison cell. It was just an act of pure, desperate will.
And they made it out. They got all the way to Tangier and actually managed to place a phone call to a French radio station. For the first time in 15 years, their story was out in the world. Now, they were quickly caught again, but it was too late. The secret was out. The Moroccan regime couldn't pretend they didn't exist anymore.
International pressure started to build. It all came to a head in 1991 when this damning book was published in France, Our Friend the King, and it laid out all these human rights abuses in Morocco, including the Oufkir story. The regime was facing a global scandal, and they finally gave in. After 20 years, the family was released. But there's one last, cruel twist to this story. When they finally went back to see their childhood home, they found it had been completely demolished, just razed to the ground, as if to say it, too, had never existed. And even worse, they found out that their secret diaries, all those poems and stories, the only record of 2 decades of their lives, had been found and burned by a friend years earlier who was terrified of being caught with them. It was a final, devastating act of erasure.
The Oufkir family survived a literal attempt to wipe them from history. They fought their way back into the light. But their story leaves us with this really profound question. You can be physically freed from a prison, sure, but after you've endured that much, after your memories and your past have been so systematically destroyed, how do you ever truly escape?